Jay Willie's defensive concerns, reviewing Notre Dame and Clemson, grading the UVA coaches, looking forward to Georgia Tech, special guests, and more. Welcome to the Jay Willie Show, alongside my main man, Yuri Barnes, DJ YB, and Jason Williford. I'm Mark Jerome. We have a busy show tonight, Coach. How you feeling?
I'm good. I'm ready. I'm curious as to who this special guest might be.
You know, I think it's going to be someone that's going to make you feel a little bit better about being a Steeler fan.
All right.
I'm not even going to ask you to guess who it is because it would be impossible.
All right.
All right.
All right.
YB, what's happening? Everything good?
Everything good, man. Life is good right now. Blessed. My team is still on fire. And I saw a good game from my boys, and that made me feel good. That got the week started off real good. And only thing is, tomorrow's game is right at the time of YB Wednesday. So I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do.
Well, check this out, YB. Tomorrow's game is canceled.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, I should have known that. My bad.
That's all right. That's okay. There's a lot of other things I'm sure you're concerned about too. Check this out, YB. What T-Dub sent me.
Woo! That's nice.
Hey,
DJ YB
so
mug.
I got a mug too.
Hold on, I'm gonna show you which mug you might have got. Check this one out. That's the Lockdown Podcast, T-Cub.
That's the Ball Hawk and T-Cub.
One too. The podcast that we do, Locker Room Podcast, with me, Dougie Fresh, and T-Dub. And this is probably what you got, Jay Wills. This the one you got?
Yeah. Yeah, you can't make out the face. It's dark on it, but yeah, I got
But it is so cool.
Wait, that's not just a black mug?
You can't really take face on it.
No, you can't. It's a face on there. Why you can't make it out? But yeah.
Yeah, you can't make it out. It's a really hot mug.
But you should see it. It ain't like that's your complexion. Is it your face?
Yeah, it's Jay Willie's face.
Yeah, it should be. It should be. You know, like rojo. That's real light skin in Spanish, basically. Let's go.
Jay Wills, now you got your own shirt. First of all, you got your own show. You got your own shirt. You got your own poster, and you got your own mug.
Crazy.
Did your sister
feel
get you yet?
I feel special.
You know what? I'm gonna pour a little something in your glass. I got a little bottle Sauvignon Blanc.
I feel special. I really got to thank T-Dub. My family's in heaven right now.
Well, yeah.
Camp, my youngest actually wears the mask, the Jay Willie mask. He wears that to and from school.
I forgot to mention that too. That's right, the face mask. Absolutely. YB, let's plug your show real quick. Tomorrow night, since there is no UVA NC State game, everybody can tune in to twitch.tv to check out YB Wednesdays.
Yep, twitch.tv/DJYB, YBWHYBE. And yeah, that's a pleasant surprise. I didn't know that the game was canceled. It was due to COVID. 7 o'clock p.m. Yes, sir. We're going to have a great show.
All right. Looking forward to that. It's always a really good show. And I'm sure tomorrow's will be just as good. And it won't be disappointed. Folks, tune it on. Even if you can't pay full attention, maybe you can watch while you're having dinner, reading, hanging out, talking.
You could even let the kids, I try to do cuss word edits. So I try to keep it somewhat family.
All right, DJ YB, I don't know if you're going to hang on with us or you're going to come back.
I'll be watching.
Okay, cool. And I'm sure you're going to be excited to see Jay Willie talk to the special guest as well.
Indeed. Can't wait.
You already know who it is.
Yep.
All right. Jay Wills.
What's up?
So before the season started, your biggest concern that you mentioned on the Jay Willie show was the defense.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about the defense now? You just held the number 12 team in the country to 50 points. And I think they were probably lucky to get 50.
Yeah, it was that was a good game. Obviously, defensively, offensively, we really shot the ball well. We shared the ball, made a ton of threes. But I thought there was a focus. We were locked in, and again, I know, you know, they were coming off of a pause, so you know some of their rhythm and some of you know how they had been playing was off. But I thought our guys were focused and quite honestly ready to meet that challenge, to go up against another ranked opponent, have an opportunity to go up against someone, you know, similar to the caliber of what we went up against a very good Gonzaga team. And we just wanted a chance to get that taste out of our mouths and come back and play, try to play well with teams that are ranked, that are in the upper echelon of college basketball. And their focus defensively, their attention to detail, their ability to guard the ball was evident from the start. But again, a lot of that had to do with how well we shot the ball. I think it was a combination of both, and I think it just snowballed in our favor, and we walked out of there with a big win.
When you talk about defense, and what are the most critical components to defense in your book? And I mean, you're talking about guarding the ball, communication, guarding the pick and roll.
Yeah,
defense.
it's all of that, Mark. Like it's a commitment to being continuous all the time. Like defense is not like most kids don't want to play defense. It's unnatural to play defense as hard as we ask them to play. You know, you get guys that'll slide, that have the ability to slide, but to slide, to contest, to box out, to do that over and over and over, possession after possession, it's just a mindset. And I think our guys are starting to get it, how we expect them to play on that end. And a lot of that has to do with they're getting more experience. They're playing more games. They're getting more comfortable being in those situations. But it's everything. I mean, it's everything you name, and it's more. It's just, you know, do you have the will to outlast the offense? And it's a battle of, you know, our defense versus really good offenses.
Yep. So, you know, you guys we all saw it, blown out against Gonzaga. 5 games later, I mean, let's go back a step. 1-14 against ACC teams prior to this weekend. You're 4-0 against teams that were collectively 1-14 in the ACC. Then you come to Clemson, who was good, and this is 5 games later after Gonzaga. Specifically, how has the team improved defensively? Is it communication? Is it leadership? Is it like, okay, we're making a commitment to rotation?
It's one where, I mean, we've continued to get after them defensively. I mean, that's been our emphasis. And so we're trying to improve daily on that end. And I think it's just some carryover from practices going into games. But I think a lot of it starts with, are we good on the ball, point of attack? Are we back in transition, not giving up easy buckets? Easier to do that after you score than after misses, obviously. You know, you can get back and be set after made baskets, and they face a set defense. So that contributed to how well we were defending, because we were able to get back and we didn't give them a whole lot of easy buckets. But then I just think they're locked in on that end right now. And again, that's one game. Like I said, they were coming off a pause. You know, we got to now bring that to the next game, and then we got to bring that to the next game. In fact, we got to bring it every day, practice to practice. So, but it's everything. It's those guys Just making an effort to be better on the defensive side. And they're going to have to be better because we haven't let up on how hard we're pushing them defensively.
Right. So you don't have a game tomorrow, right? And so a lot of people are concerned about that there could be a letdown, or there could be like, oh no, we don't have a game in a week in case everybody was looking forward to playing Wednesday. Now we might lose some momentum. But I want to point out something. The game against Clemson, the second team didn't miss a beat, right? And then when the guys went in, the third team went in, the guys who don't get a lot of playing time, a lot of times that's like reckless basketball, right? One of my uncles years ago when I was really young, we refer that when the games were over, you refer that to scrub ball, right? The scrub play, when the guys that don't play a lot get to get in the game. Those guys look good. Those guys look like they were under control, they defensively and offensively. They ran stuff.
Well, I've said it on here before about the depth. We've got depth. We've got guys that can play. Unfortunately, we can't play for coaches. That's the hard part. You can't play everybody. But there's depth. You got to be ready when your number's called. But those guys put in, they put in work. They're getting the same reps, and they want to play. What I took away from that game was how into the game, you just said it, each and every one of them. You could hear them on the bench. They're rooting for each other. They're running up and down the sideline. Like it was like they're all into the game. So that makes it easier when you get in, because you're mentally into the game. You're watching what's going on. You're locked in. You're tuned in. And so I think that has something to do with it. But again, I think it's just the way we practice. We're getting after it. We're competing. Coaches putting his thumb on the guys when he needs to, and holding them accountable. So I was happy to see everybody get a chance to play.
Now, there's no substitute for playing a game, right? But in absence of not having that game, having 17, 18 guys go at it hard, does that alleviate some of the concerns for you guys of missing a game going into Saturday?
No, personally, I wanted to play. Again, we have to be ready for whatever happens this season because of, what we're in, what just the nature of this year. But the guys want to play, but we'll be prepared. And that's part of our leadership. That's part of the older guys. The guys with experience have to keep everybody locked in. And we got to treat, these practices as if we're getting ready for the next one, and whenever the next one may be. So I think those guys will, they're mature enough. They've got enough experience under their belt. They'll be ready for the next game. But, I wanted to keep rolling, take a day off, have 2 days to prepare and keep playing, keep rolling. Because this time of year this is where you kind of get into a groove where, you rest your body when you need to rest, you recover, you prepare for the next opponent, boom, and you start that cycle over again. And I kind of like where we were, but it's the hand that's dealt. We'll be ready when it's time to play.
Flexibility is so key right now.
You have to be. You have to, and that's for us. That's for everybody. I don't think there's anybody that's got an advantage this year. We're all in the same boat.
Yep. Notre Dame played very great first half. Second half was solid. What were concerns that you had after reviewing the tape, after reviewing the video?
I thought we did a better job, obviously the second time on Leshevsky, and a better job on the big kid, Durham. And, we kind of we fouled them. They got to the free throw line. We in the second half, I thought we kind of allowed the guards to get downhill a little bit and touch the paint and do some of that stuff. So again, there were things that we had, you know, we kept saying, let's put together a good 40 minutes of basketball. Like we play good halves. Let's get 40 good minutes. And so, you know, there's always room to improve. You start fouling and scoring points from the free throw line, or you know, you're giving up good looks, or you don't tag a shooter. You know, you don't stay on a guy's hip and he gets a free look. So just, you know, those things we wanted to clean up going into the next game.
When you say you don't tag a shooter, just for people who may not be aware of that terminology.
Yeah, guy coming off a screen where, you know, he's getting a screen set for him. You want to be on that guy's, you know, hip and ride him off the screen, and you know, just be there on the catch. So I thought there was separation at times on some of their shooters where we allowed them to get free looks, and you know, and as the season progresses, you know, games become, you know, possession games, you know, against the you know, the teams in our league that are the upper echelon, and you want to be able to be there on every catch and make it difficult, and not give them free looks. So in those games, those possession games, it could come down to, you know, that one look, you know, out of bounds under play, and you lost a guy, he comes off and shoots it, you know, that 2 points could be the difference in the game later in the game. So just being locked in and stuff like that.
So if the goal was playing 40 minutes of really good basketball, you certainly had to be happy about Clemson.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, they're hard not to be happy coming out of that one, but there's also stuff that we got to continue to improve. And you know, defense, I like to say defense travels. You know, we've said that for years. There'll be nights where we don't shoot it like that. I mean, we're not going to make 15 threes every time out. So you got to be able to rely on your defense when those shots aren't falling. So, you know, there are things that we can continue to do, you know, continue to improve at. But I liked our effort in that Clemson game. I mean, I just thought they were ready from the start.
Yep. One of the things that I have been talking to people outside of the UVA family, and even we talked about, I'll bring this up too, that on the post-game show of the locker room post-game show after the Clemson game, Dougie Fresh brought up grading the coaches. Right?
Grading the coaches.
Grading the coaches, right? Because everybody talks about the players, but what about the coaching staff? And you and I have had some conversations about coaches, and I've commented, you know, you've made the comment that I'm a tough grader on some players and some coaches.
You're a very hard critic of players. Yes.
Let's make this clear. So first of all, I think that they're all so good. And I've said this before, just some kids are a little bit better than others, or a lot better than others, right? They're all ridiculously good. But other kids are better. So when we talk about coaches, you and I have had conversations about some coaches, and I said, I don't understand why this guy has this job if he can't make adjustments. It's amazing to me. We're not going to name names, right? Recently. And I watched you guys play Clemson, and my personal favorite plays are either back screens or back doors. Mm-hmm. And I'm watching you guys just dissect them. What did you see? Were those game time adjustments, or were those strategies that you guys developed after watching some game film and saying, oh, we can do this, we can spread the court on them, we can go back door on them? Because you did it multiple times. And I was just my mind was just going, this staff is so good.
Well, I think I appreciate you giving the staff a ton of credit. I do. I like that. But I think a lot of the times, Mark, within what we're doing offensively, you're just playing the game. Like you're reading, you know, again, we practice against pressure. And whenever there's pressure, there's certain things you want to do against pressure. Look, we knew their numbers didn't lie. That was a good defensive group. They were I think holding teams to the lowest point total. I think they're number one in points allowed. Like they got after it. And so whenever there's opportunities, you get a back door. If you can, if you're overplayed. I mean, it's the Princeton, it's old school Princeton basketball. Like if you're overplayed, back cut, and you put pressure on the rim. And I think our guys are just playing. And what I think is they're getting a lot more comfortable.
I got to interrupt you. I got to
and-
stop for a second. And I know you're being humble, and I know that's one of the 5 pillars. But it's not just playing, right? If guys are just playing, they just be going up and down.
I know the plays you're talking about, but it's not like we're saying do this, go back door. Like I think they're just like Jay hit Kihei twice.
Yeah.
And that's just, they were just playing. They were playing within what we were doing offensively. And, and we've seen it. You see it in practice. We get revved up and you see them, they look at each other and boom, before you know it, he's throwing the back door, or Kihei's throwing Jay alive, vice versa. So those guys are getting, they're getting comfortable. That starting unit is getting very comfortable playing with each other, and I like to see that.
All right, before we go on a variation, how would you grade the coaching system, the coaching staff from the beginning of the year? Do you guys look at how you evolve? What do you think about, like, after a game? Do you say, oh, what could I have done better? Do you look at the tape or the video and say, oh, we should have done this or this? And how have you evolved this season from a total complete staff, from the beginning to now?
I think after every game, we're evaluating our what we're doing, what we could have done based on what the opponent did, and can you run this? You're always second guessing, especially after losses. You're like, God, I wish we would have done this, that. So yeah, that's constant. That's every coach, every staff in the country is doing that. That's the self-scout, self-evaluation. I got to give Tony a ton of credit. He watches more practice film, more game film than anybody. He's breaking down. So he is constantly trying to get better and improve. And I think that's part of his OCD.
Yeah. He was one of the first coaches, I think, and I'm trying to think if there were any other coaches when we went on recruiting visit to UVA that showed film, right? I don't remember another coach showing Ty film while on a visit. Ty didn't go on a ton of visits, but he sat down with us and said, hey, look at this, this is what we do. It was pretty awesome.
He's an attention to detail guy, and he wants to. I'll tell you the biggest story, and he has said this. I know I've heard him say this before, but the UMBC game drove us all to be better coaches. We had to self-reflect, change, what we were doing in certain situations, be willing to play, small ball. We had to make those adjustments, and that game, I know, made he and I better coaches, and I would assume the rest of the staff, because we had to do something. And again, he is doing that after every practice. He's looking at it, he's breaking stuff down. It's who he is. That's his nature.
Right. And I don't know how many people have heard the story about the difference in 1 year for you, halftime at the UMBC game and halftime at the Gardner-Webb game.
No doubt. But that was more, that was more, I probably was very close to doing the exact same thing I did the year before. And that was Tony who had said, we can't do what we did last year. Let's just, everything's fine, stay calm. And so it was more a directive from the head coach. My nature is to just, I wear kind of my emotions on my sleeve, and I gotta let it be known. So that's just me. I was that way as a player. I'm still that way as a coach, but I've gotten better. But yeah, that was that particular story. That halftime was more directive. Hey, Jay, basically, this is what he said. He said, guys, we can't do what we did last year. And then he looked at me almost as to say, Jay, you got it. Like basically, Jay, don't do what you did last year. He just didn't say, Jay, don't do it.
How's it going? How much is, and when you talk about this year's team from the beginning of the year, and one of the things that I think a lot of us were thinking about was the front line being the I guess taking the lion's share of the offense, and recently the guards have really stepped up, right? And with Kihei and Casey and Reese, right? And last game was Tomas. That's got to be such a relief knowing that you have 3 to 4 guards that you're relying on, that they have the ball in the backcourt. The ball's not going to be stolen from them, right? Or at least hasn't yet. They're not turning it over. They're making really good decisions. They're scoring and now taking good shots. The ball's in the guard's hand, right?
Well, quite honestly, it's kind of what we anticipated early. We just, it's taken a while. But Kihei's in his 3rd year with us, Mark. Like that's what you expect. You expect him to mature and his game to grow, and for him as a 3rd year to take care of the ball. And he's been in some of the toughest, most pressure-packed moments in UVA history. Like he shouldn't be rattled at all. Now that he's a 3rd year. And so, Tom, being his 2nd year in the program, and, a JUCO player, he's got some games under his belt. And then Reese is really, really good in regards to his composure and not getting sped up and just making good decisions. And that's kind of, Morcell, this is the Morcell we expect. This is the kid we recruited who was, you want to see him make shots, play good defense. And now with him, again, with all the experience that he has from playing, he played a ton last year. So I think those guys are drawing on those experiences and playing well. Oh my goodness. I just lost focus. So again, those guys, the backcourt, Mark, they should be doing. We should be seeing this, and in the addition of Trey Murphy. This was, his addition was unexpected, but he's got 2 years of college ball. This is 2.5 years for him now. He's in his 3rd year as well. So he's got experience.
Yep. Special guest. We all know him. Your former teammate. Always entertaining.
I just want to know which personality this is tonight. Who is this tonight?
You got to see him come on when he comes on the pregame show and he's dressed in different outfits.
Yeah.
It always keeps us on our toes, and I'm always like spending the first 30 seconds just cracking up, hoping like
Are you giving me a gift from the florist? Is that what this is?
Yeah, there's a couple things I need to clear up.
All right.
Because the florist, there's been some backlash against the nickname because it sounds tough. The florist, the main thing about the florist is he spreads the floor. Okay, that's the essence of it, right?
Okay.
And the second is that he makes special deliveries, which we see in the form of 3-pointers and dunks. So I wanted to make that point first. Secondly, Jay, I spent this weekend in Fort Myers with my son at a baseball tournament, a lot of downtime. I talked to DJYB about this. I watched the 94 ACC tournament. We went to the final against Carolina, the blackout game. You remember that?
The snow game where they announced that the lights are going to go out. 30 minutes before the lights went out?
Yes, there were a lot of controversy around that, but I wanted to watch it for a couple reasons. Number one is it makes me feel good about myself to see me when I'm young. Okay, you look the same, by the way, with your fresh cut. You look good,
that.
and skinny Jay. Like maybe a year ago, I might not have said that, but you look great, brother, and you're doing a good job.
I put on a few fresh. I've already put on maybe 10 already from what I lost, so that's not good.
Hey, but you're doing a good job, and you and Mark, but it must have been haircut day because you guys are both looking.
We both went low.
Looking sharp. So a couple things, Jay. So. And don't be nervous. I'm not asking any hard hitting questions. I love the florist. I think we play our best.
I do too.
Yo, I know you do. I know you do. And I think we're at our best when he's playing well. But at the beginning of the season, would you have ever imagined that our tallest guy is up at the top of the key hitting guys for backdoor cuts and our smallest guy is operating on the block?
I would never have guessed that. But the little guy has been really good down on the block.
Really good.
Yeah.
Really good. No, I love to see it. And you guys were talking earlier about coaching grades. And I think it's really easy to assign grades to people. But, as a coach, Jay, when you evaluate players, you look for agility. And if I was a player looking at coaching staffs, I'd look at coaching agility. And I think you guys have been remarkably agile this year in both your offensive and defensive sets. So I love what you guys are doing. Keep it going. Now, here's the main thing. You may think I'm the special guest.
Uh-oh.
But I'm not. I know, Jay, I'm special, but I'm not nearly as special as who we're bringing on. And I think it's appropriate, an appropriate guest. There he is down there. I'm not gonna tell you exactly who it is, but it's appropriate for two reasons. Number one, you're still licking your wounds from the Steeler beatdown that happened. And that I know that was hard for you. We've covered that. But secondly, on the heels of Martin Luther King weekend and all that's going on socially right now, I thought it was really important. I want to introduce you to a great friend of mine, someone I've known for 12, 15 years down here in Palm Beach, somebody who's incredibly philanthropic, who served in the House of Representatives, and maybe more importantly for you, Jay, is part of the Rooney family. Please meet Pat Rooney Jr., joining us live from Palm Beach area.
Oh, wow.
Hey guys, how are you?
How's it going?
It's going great. Good to be on with you, and happy to talk Steeler football if that's what you want to do.
I love my Steelers. So, Pat, this is a weird story, but my aunt who lives in Pittsburgh, she taught at Carlisle School, some of the grandkids of the Rooneys, and small world it is.
Unbelievable. Carlisle. Now I gotta confess something. I was born in Pittsburgh, but I actually grew up in Philadelphia, believe it or not. So I'm familiar, obviously, with a lot of Pittsburgh places, but I'm more of a Philadelphia guy, with the exception of the Steelers. I can't let go of them, so they're still part of me.
So Jay,
this is awesome.
Yeah, you're my boy. I wanted to get you some good therapy, and I thought the best therapy was to take you right to the family that founded the Steelers. And I know you've got. Go ahead.
No, they do a phenomenal job with my Steelers. It's the best run organization in the NFL. There's stability. We've only had 3 coaches in the last, God knows, 40 years, I think it is, between Noel and Cowher and now Mike Tomlin. we just gotta we gotta send Ben out the right way. I think hopefully he's got one more in him. But if not, we'll have to just move forward and get us a new quarterback.
Yeah, really important point. You know, we talk about diversity and opportunity probably more than ever right now. And the Rooney Rule, instituted in 2003 by Dan Rooney, who is Pat's uncle,
Yeah.
was created after Tony Dungy
Yep.
and Dennis Green got fired when they were, you know, both having pretty good careers. And the goal is to ensure that minority candidates get opportunities.
Interview.
What's that?
They get interviewed. They get the opportunity to be interviewed.
Exactly right. And I think Dan Rooney, you know, ran the diversity committee at the NFL for a long time. And I think that's such a great tribute to the family, having it called the Rooney Rule. So Jay, I'm going to go to you.
Well, let me interrupt you for a second, Chris, on that
Yeah.
one. Just so you know, it's now not just limited to the NFL. I think it's the Big West Conference that also adopted that rule in college basketball.
Well, I don't know what's been adopted, but I think it's now general practice in all of the major leagues, colleges, sports that, and they call it the Rooney Rule. I think it's awesome.
Specifically the Big West Conference, I believe, whatever
Okay.
conference Gonzaga's in, I believe, Jay, if you can help me out in there, if you're familiar with it or not. And I think it's because of the Rooney Rule that some of these schools are actually taking into large consideration people of color being candidates for jobs. So thank you for that. And thank you and your family.
Hey, you're welcome. It was mainly my uncle, but I'll take credit for it if you want to give it to me.
Yeah, and Jay, by the way, saying that you know somebody that, what's that?
I think it's a family affair. I'd like to believe that.
Yeah, down here in Palm Beach, saying that you have a relative that either taught or went to school with a Rooney. There's a lot of them. But
There's a lot of Rooneys down there.
The family tree, you need a whole like mural to go through it. But here's what's special about them: their philanthropy, the fact they've got the Rooney Rule. They're all great people. Jay, talk to me about how you became a Steeler fan and sort of the first teams that you remember.
Wow. So my mother is from Pittsburgh, and she grew up in Carrick. I don't know if you're familiar with that part of Pittsburgh, or Brookline. And so I spent summers visiting my grandparents and my aunts and uncles. And so I was brainwashed at an early age to be a Steeler fan. And if you know anything about Steelers in Pittsburgh, you almost have to be a Steeler fan if you live in Pittsburgh. I mean, it goes hand in hand. So, obviously Bradshaw and Franco, those guys were, on the end of their careers, and Joe Green. But I remember like Louis Lips and Neil O'Donnell and you name it. Hodges was a running back. You name a superstar, you name anybody, I've got a jersey, or I used to go to games at Three Rivers when it was Three Rivers and not Heinz Field. So I bleed everything black and gold. Penguins, Pirates, Steelers, I love them all.
Yeah, he needs some help. Pat, I'm going to go to you now. General thoughts on the season this year. You guys came out on fire. It sort of ended in a disappointing way. You guys have had a ton of success. What were your thoughts this year?
Well, it was a tough year. The way it ended, obviously, Chris. As you mentioned, we started 11-0. Everything looks great, but we suffered really two key injuries, and I don't want to, use that as an excuse or anything. Everybody has injuries, but we lost Devin Bush, who's our middle inside linebacker, against Cleveland the first game. And that took away a big strength that we had, stopping the run and covering linebackers and stuff like that from the middle. But really, in my opinion, the super key injury occurred a little bit later against Washington, where Bud Dupree got hurt. And him and TJ Watt are bookend defensive, rush ends. And when he got hurt at the end of that game, it just really zapped us and I think that was Baltimore game, but anyway, it just zapped of us of that dynamic duo that we had on the edges, and then teams really could start double teaming and focusing on TJ, and it took away our ability to create turnovers and sacks and things like that, and the team, just couldn't respond after that injury. And sometimes that happens to teams. That you think a guy, you can get away with one guy getting injured or maybe two, but certain guys are really key to what you want to do either offensively or defensively. And when we lost Dupree, that really took a lot of wind out of our sails. So, we end up losing the next game to Washington, which we should have won. We lost a horrible game to the Bengals on the road, which, was again, very defeating. We came back and had a nice game second half against Indianapolis and won that game. That helped clinch the AFC North. But then we go into Cleveland, we're resting guys and end up losing that game. So we really had no momentum going into the playoffs. And a lot of those injuries that I mentioned, we had other guys getting injured too. I think it just caught up to us. And again, I don't want to take anything away from those teams that beat us or Cleveland in the playoffs. They deserved it. But it's kind of like we used up a lot of mojo and energy in those first 11 games and just didn't have anything towards the end.
Yeah. As a guy who grew up with an organization, me with the Celtics and you with the Steelers, what are some of your fondest memories of being a kid and some of the players that impacted you, and any great stories you have would be fun.
Well, I was very lucky. I was born in 1964, and my real first memories of sports in general, but the Steelers in particular, was like 1972. So I was about 8 years old, and I started to realize, what sports meant and being a fan of a team. Now, prior to 1972, the Steelers originated in 1933. So from 1933 to 1972, 40 years, they did nothing. They were terrible. If you watch a lot of the old NFL films, and John Facenda was the voice of NFL films, they'll start things about the Pittsburgh Steelers saying for 40 years, no team was worse than the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I missed all that, thank God. So when I was sort of first cognizant of football and sports was 1972, the Immaculate Reception, and we started to become a good team. And so through the 70s, when I was young, but able to go to Super Bowls and stuff, they were a great team. And, Jay mentioned some of those players, Bradshaw and Franco and Jack Lambert and Joe Green. And, just to be around a bunch of Hall of Famers as a kid, you can only imagine how awesome that was. So, a lot of stories from going to training camp as a young kid and getting to catch balls from Bradshaw or Joe Green or Lynn Swan. You can't even imagine what it's like as a young kid to be able to experience that. I remember a real quick story. One of my first memories of Jack Lambert, my grandfather took me into the locker room. This is before a game, and most of the players were out on the field, and Lambert was still in there getting taped up and stuff. He's sitting by his locker, and I remember this, he's smoking 2 cigarettes, not one. And this is a pro athlete. And he's smoking 2 cigarettes, and our equipment manager came out. He's like, "Hey, I've been smoking this, waiting for you, to take it. I can only do one at a time." And he gave it to the equipment manager. And I just remember a little kid. I'm like, I can't believe these athletes are smoking and smoking in the locker room before a game. But it just shows you what a different era it was, and how things have obviously changed in terms of health and everything else. But it was just a great experience to be 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years old and get to go to Super Bowls and meet guys that you see on TV, and everybody in your class looks up to you because you sort of know them a little bit. But a lot of fun. Can't imagine having a better childhood.
So were they smoking cigarettes before and drinking Rolling Rock and Iron City Light after?
Another one of the great stories. We played Oakland in the AFC Championship game in 1976. We'd lost Rocky Blyer and Franco Harris and a lot of people to injury in the game before against Baltimore. And we're playing them in the AFC Championship. And a lot of people think that was our greatest team. We started out 1-4, and over the next 9 games, remember there were only 14 back then. In the next 9 games, we shut out 5 opponents, and I think we gave up a total of 42 points in those 9 games, which is unheard of. And we go into the playoffs and we blow out Baltimore, and then we go to Oakland. And I remember we lost that game to Oakland, and they went and win the Super Bowl. And I remember Jack Lambert saying after that game, "Give us an hour, a 6-pack of beer, and we'll take them on again, and we'll beat them this time." So it was the sort of the mentality of, drinking. It was like Babe Ruth eating hot dogs and drinking and smoking and everything else and hitting 3 home runs. It was just a different era then that, guys believed, they could eat and drink or whatever and be ready to play right, in a half hour. So it was a lot of fun.
You mentioned a different era, and the Steelers have had some great eras. Now you're facing Roethlisberger at the end of his career. I know Jay has made several comments about give us another year or two. I personally, think he's got a few more years. Pat, love to get your thoughts on Roethlisberger, his career, his legacy. He's, just a remarkable player and a Hall of Famer, but would love to hear from you on him.
Yeah, I mean, and Jay probably isn't going to want to hear this, but you want my straight opinion. I'm going to give it to you. I love Ben. I mean, between Bradshaw and Ben, we had some decent quarterbacks in there, but we had nobody that could take us over the top. And after 25 years, he did it. He brought us over the top in Super Bowl 40, and for that, I'm eternally grateful to the guy, because sometimes you don't know. You look at Cleveland or Detroit, Jacksonville, teams that have never made it to the Super Bowl, let alone won one. And so to get back there, and my kids were at the same age I was, in the 70s at that time, so they could experience a couple Super Bowl wins. I'll be forever grateful to them. But, much like you saw with Drew Brees and you're going to see with Phillip Rivers and probably at some point with Tom Brady, I just think the time's come. Ben can absolutely play next year. He probably play a couple more years, but I don't know if that's going to be the best thing for the team. The team right now, to me, Chris, is going to be in a transition period. We're way over the cap. We're going to have to cut a bunch of really good players next year to get under the cap. And if you look at the other teams in our division, Baltimore, Cincinnati, and Cleveland, they all have young quarterbacks, young teams on the rise, teams that we're probably not going to be able to compete against, say, in the next 3 to 4 years. So my opinion is, let's start retooling now. I hate the word rebuild, but we've got to redo our offensive line. Those guys are getting old, and some of them are going to retire anyway. The defensive line is probably close behind that. And you got to start with the lines. Let's get them built back up. Hopefully we can get a QB here. I don't know if Mason Rudolph's the answer, so we need to get a QB at some point, probably in the draft. And then 3 to 4 years from now, be ready to make another run. But if Ben comes back, which again, it's his prerogative if he wants to, and I think the team would welcome him back, I just don't know if we're going to have anybody surrounding him that's going to be much better than an 8-8 team next year. And again, Steeler fans, I know, hate hearing that. But you have to be realistic here and look at the other teams in the division. Look at our schedule next year. We got to play at Kansas City, at Green Bay, at Minnesota, plus the away games in our division. It's going to be very difficult to be much better than 4-4 probably on the road. And I don't know where that gets you. Maybe 10-6. And can you do anything with that? I don't know. So I'd love to have Ben back, but I got to be realistic here. And I just don't know if him coming back is going to help matters when you're going to be losing James Conner. You're going to lose Juju Smith. You're going to lose some guys because we can't afford to keep them.
Hey, Pat, I have a couple of quick questions. One,
Sure.
Just for the record, I was a huge Steeler fan growing up. I was born in San
Don't
Francisco.
jump on the bandwagon now, Mark. You don't want you.
Let me explain my affinity
Patriots
for the
tattoo.
Steelers. Let me explain my affinity for the Steelers. I was born in San Francisco, so I was always a 49er fan. But when I got to New York, my family was always anti-Cowboy fans. So it was easy to pick the Steelers because those guys were going at it with each other. So I was a huge fan of Franco. First of all, my mom thought Franco was gorgeous. So she was always like, Franco, right? So big Franco fan.
Lynn Swan, John Stallworth, Terry Bradshaw, Jack Ham, Jack Lambert, Mike Webster, all those guys, right? And I think I walked around with either a Lynn Swan jersey on or a Terry Bradshaw jersey. So just to understand what you said previously, do you recommend teams that have made the playoffs not completely resting their starters going into the playoffs just so they have some reps?
Well, that's a great question. And I understood from Coach Tomlin's perspective what he was trying to do. My thought on that particular decision was that we had done nothing really in the previous 5 games, with the exception of one half against Indianapolis, in my opinion, to warrant a rest. These guys needed some reps. They needed to, whatever we had in that second half in Indianapolis, we needed to try to get that back and keep it going. And obviously, if you're resting guys, there's not going to be any of that continuation of that momentum. And I'll give you an example. The very first snap of the game against Cleveland in the playoffs, Pouncey snaps it over Roethlisberger's head. Now, is that a result of them not doing much in the last 2 weeks? I don't know. I mean, Pouncey's an all-pro center. That should be second nature to him. But nonetheless, there probably wasn't a lot of practice in those 2 weeks because Tomlin wanted to give him a rest. I get that. But in my opinion, yeah, you're risking injury to those guys. I get that. And Roethlisberger's 100. I get you want to rest them, but there was no momentum going into that last Cleveland regular season game. We needed to try to keep something going, even if you only play for a half. And don't forget that second seed was still up for grabs. I know it didn't mean as much in terms of a week off or any of that it did this year. It normally would. But if Buffalo would have lost to Miami, I believe they were playing. Obviously they didn't, but if they did, we could have grabbed that number 2 seed, and then you're at home for at least 2 games instead of potentially going to Buffalo if we would have beat Cleveland. So there were some things to play for, and I would have kept playing the guys at least for a half. I wouldn't have done anything crazy, but I would have played them to just keep the football muscle memory going rather than rest them. And again, it's a fine line. I get it. I'm not the coach of the team. He's got to gauge where he thinks they are. But just from a fan perspective, I would have played him that at least a half, kept the momentum somewhat going, and then go into the playoff game at least with a little bit of feeling like, hey, we haven't been off for 2 weeks.
Certainly a lot.
I got a question.
Let me ask a follow up to that, and then jump in after that. So, was there any type of conversation between you and Tomlin to discuss guys and availability before the game?
No, I don't have any say whatsoever in the running of the team. My cousin Art runs everything, and even I can tell you, would not interfere one iota in whatever Coach Tomlin, Kevin Colbert. He doesn't interfere in any capacity like that. He lets the coaches coach. Colbert does the drafting, all that kind of stuff. He stays pretty clear. Now, at the end of the season, he'll make suggestions. He'll say something to the media like, I'd like to see us run the ball better. And then, that's a little tip off for the next year. But he would not get involved with, anything regarding game planning at all.
You mentioned Bud's injury, and I thought it was like when he got hurt, I was devastated. I said, oh, there goes. And then Joe Hayden doesn't play down the stretch because of COVID protocol, and he missed some games because of injury. Does Bud's injury help us keep him, in your opinion? Because I know he's a free agent as well.
Yeah, and I think, but number one, I think Bud loves Pittsburgh. He had a rough couple years there where people were sort of wondering if he was going to be like Jarvis Jones and really not turn out to be anything. And then he really ratcheted up the play the last couple of years, especially with TJ Watt, taking some of the pressure off of him. But Bud became his own really good player, and I would love to have him back. I think Bud would love to be back. But Jay, the money's going to be way too much. He's going to get a lot of money from somebody, assuming that knee is, typical ACL, heals
Right.
the way it should.
Right.
I don't think he's going to give us a discount. And to be quite honest, I wouldn't expect him to. He's worked his butt off to get to this point. We franchise tagged him, I think, last year, and we're not going to do that again. He's going to earn a lot of money, and that's that's nothing against Bud and whether he likes the Steelers or not. That's just business. And that's what he should do.
Right. That's the business. Yeah. And we do. We got a ton of free agents. I'm like a kid in the candy store right now, having Mark.
Go
like,
with it.
hearing
Go,
all
Jay. You
the-
roll. You roll.
like-
you roll.
No. Like this is this is exciting. I love listening. But we got a ton of free agents. I just don't know. There's no way we keep them all. So yes, we're in a total rehaul, rebuild this year and the next couple years. So it is what it is.
So Pat, can you recommend a good therapist for Jay Willie next year in case the Steelers don't do so well?
No, I mean, you just got to be, and I always say this, you can't give up complete hope. You literally get one player, you get a Lamar Jackson or a Patrick Mahomes or somebody, you get lucky in the draft and you get somebody that can turn. Listen, Baltimore was on, Harbaugh was going to get fired. That team was on the skids a couple years ago. Then this kid falls to them at 25 or whatever he was. And all of a sudden they're getting ready to go to the Super Bowl pretty soon. That's what happens. You can get one guy and you think you're in a long-term rebuild or whatever, and all of a sudden you're fighting for a Super Bowl berth. So you can't completely give up, but there is reality to deal with here. And just like we're talking about, we're probably, and again, I don't want to sound too pessimistic, but you're looking at Joe Hayden, you're looking at Bud Dupree, you're looking at Mike Hilton, you're looking at Alejandro Villanueva, you're looking at James Conner, you're looking at Juju Smith, you're looking at losing all those guys. You lose all those guys, that has to impact what you're able to do. I love Highsmith, the kid from Charlotte, to take over for Bud, but is he going to be at that level next year? No, it's going to take him a couple years to get there. So, again, realistically looking at things, can we start building through the draft, and start getting some offensive linemen, number one, work on some defensive backs and linemen, and then see where we can go with a quarterback, getting somebody in the future. But with all that said, you get lucky and somebody falls to you, Aaron Rodgers falls to you at number 24, whatever we're going to be drafting. Hey, all of a sudden next year's a lot more optimistic than you thought. I'm just obviously trying to look at it from more of a realistic standpoint, and that probably is not going to happen. So you do with what you can do and then have a plan and work that plan.
So
Hey,
Pat,
whenever I'm in Pittsburgh, when we're playing the Panthers, I always sneak over to Jerome's restaurant the day before and have a meal in there before we play Pitt. So that's like, I get my fix. I go in, I see all of, I'm right by the stadium. I see all of his paraphernalia. I love it. Is Pouncey done? Or is this it for Pouncey?
Well, you got him and DeCastro. DeCastro, I think, is a year or two younger, but he did not have a good year. And obviously Marquise has been just such a solid anchor to that line for so long that you hate to say, is it time? But, it happened to Troy Polamalu. It happened to Hines Ward. It happens to all great guys that you want to see play forever. Pouncey is a big hit next year with his salary. And do you keep trying to extend him out and kicking this can down the road like we've done with Roethlisberger, who's going to be worth against some $40 million to the cap next year? Those are all great questions, Jay. And that's really where Colbert and Tomlin and my cousin have to earn their keep and figure out, do we want to try and make one attempt again at this if Roethlisberger comes back, or do we kind of bite the bullet and say, yeah, maybe it's time to, really revamp this thing, and it's gonna hurt. I'm not gonna kid you. You're probably looking at several, 6 and 10 type years, but we had that 6 and 10 year in 2003, and we got Ben Roethlisberger out of it, and then we went on a 16-year run. So again, it might be a little pain in the initial part of this, but can it lead to something down the road? And that's what they got to figure out.
Yeah, they will. Those guys. I got all the faith in them. I'm with them to the end. And one of the all-time Steeler greats lives here in Charlottesville. He's back here. Heath Miller, who my kids play with his kids. They play soccer together. So I see Heath all the time. You wouldn't even know he was a former. I mean, the dude's like a all-pro Hall of Fame guy potentially, and he's like just the salt of the earth. He's very unassuming, great guy. So you guys do a great job. You draft high character. So I love it.
Jay, do you, you've grown up watching the Steelers culture and watching the games and knowing the players and knowing the rivalries. Now you're a coach at UVA. Do you see any parallels between what you and Tony have built and what the Steelers have built in terms of philosophy?
Yeah.
And
so Tony often refers to us as being blue collar. And I think that's what Pittsburgh has always been. It's a blue collar city. The franchise is blue collar. They have always, thrived on the defensive side of the ball. And I think that's our MO. I mean, we're a defense first program, but we're blue collar. And we try to get high character guys, and not everybody's always high character, but we do our best in recruiting. But our philosophy from a defensive standpoint and being blue collar, I see a lot of similarities, and just toughness, just that toughness that Pittsburgh represents.
yeah, how much do we recruit out of that area much, or Pennsylvania in general?
We tried. There's a couple kids in the last few years out of Pittsburgh, but Pittsburgh's not a hotbed of basketball talent. Yeah. There's a ton of football in Western PA, but Philadelphia's got a ton of basketball, and so we've gone up in that area of Pennsylvania. DeAndre Hunter, for example, out of Friends Central, there in Philly. But yeah, sure. We'll go wherever there's talent. And Pittsburgh just hadn't had a whole lot of basketball talent.
Yeah. Hey, Pat, I have one last question.
He wouldn't like us coming in the Pittsburgh getting all of those guys anyway.
Pat, I have one last question. May have another one too. Are you familiar with UVA's basketball championship run?
Yes, I am. Now, listen, I'm going to preface things. You guys are going to get on me. I went to Clemson undergrad, and you kicked our butts a couple nights ago. My Clemson's only been ranked very rarely over the last 40 years, and you go in there and spank us. And then I went to Villanova for law school. So, I got two teams I cheer for in basketball, and I think UVA's beat them both over the last couple of years. But yeah, I appreciate Tony Bennett, and I appreciate just what Jay's talking about, the defense and what they're able to do. And you guys are right up there this year. I mean, I don't follow college basketball quite like I do pro football, but I mean, you've only got a couple losses, and you don't know what's going to happen in this crazy pandemic COVID world we're living in. And UVA's got every bit as much of a chance as any other team out there, I think, that I've seen.
Well, Clemson and Villanova, you got to be quite proud to root for the football team in Clemson with all their success, and Villanova's basketball success. They won 2 championships, right, in the last 5 years or so. So can you make the parallel of, or can you, is it any way inspiring to the Steelers to watching the UVA basketball team winning a national championship?
Well, I think all championship teams, no matter what the sport is, can glean something from another team and how they won. Whether it's, and I hate to even bring this up, you look at the Patriots and how they did it for 20 years of consistent excellence in any sport, but especially pro football, where the draft system and free agency are essentially made for the teams that stink to get better. So to be on top for that long, you have to look at that and say, how are they running things? What's the coaching tree there? Where are they getting these, the players from in the draft when they're drafting in the upper 20s or low 30s every year? How are they doing it? Same thing in basketball, pro or college. Where are they getting the kids from? Just what you guys were talking about. What's the character of that team, and how do they get to make them feel like they're a cog in a machine that is going to win? And so much importance is placed on individuality now that it's tough to get guys to buy in to a team concept. So I think any team, pro or college, can learn from any other team. You look at somebody like Nick Saban and what they've been able to do at Alabama for these last 10, 12 years. Just a consistency of excellence and how hard that is to maintain. I think all teams, whether they want to admit it or not, look at other teams, obviously, especially in their own sport, but you can go outside of sports and see your own sport and see how they're doing it and try to copy that in some way.
No, Pat, you're spot on. There's great lessons for life in all of sports, and I do think people pay attention. Let me ask you this: in the ginormous Rooney family tree, anyone looking at UVA right now? We'd love to have you up for a game once things return to normal. But I know Pittsburgh isn't that far from Virginia, and let us know.
Listen, Chris, I'd love for my kids are all older now. I got one son at Mercyhurst up in Erie and another one at Denison and near Columbus, Ohio. But they're the only two left in my crew. I'm the oldest of 7, so there is some hope there. My younger brothers and sisters have some young kids, but I don't know if they're smart enough to go to UVA. That's the problem. You got to be pretty smart to get in there.
Well, I know Melissa's pretty accomplished equestrian, and they've got some good program hunter jumper stuff out of Virginia. But Pat, on behalf of myself and Mark, and especially Jason Williford, thank you so much for joining. I know Jason was happy to talk about Steeler football and instead of taking questions from the fans. So thank you so much for joining. We really appreciate it.
Guys, it's been my pleasure. Anytime you want to talk about football, I'm your guy. So I appreciate Chris and Jay. Hang in there with our Steelers. We'll be back. It might be a couple years, but we'll be back.
I'm here. It's been a pleasure meeting you and talking to you. All the best.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Pat.
Thanks, Pat.
All righty. See you guys.
Hey, that's a big time treat. I tell you, I'm like a kid in the can. Man, I'm talking to one of the Rooney family members.
Yeah, man. I knew that would be it'd be cool for you, Jay. And
hey, that was big time.
They're just a great family. Like they.
So have I don't mean to cut you off. My aunt taught, and like you said, there's so many.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was Dan's grandkids or whoever, but she talked about how genuine and down to earth that family. You'd never know that they were owners of an NFL franchise, and they're just really genuine folk. And she often talked about that. And she's taught, God, I want to say 3, 4, 5 of them now over the years. Yeah.
Big Irish Catholic family. Art Rooney Sr. founded the Steelers and owned it. They called him the chief for literally like 50 years. And he had 7 sons, and all 7 of those sons had like 6 or 7 kids. So there's a big family tree, but to a person, they are class acts. And that's reflected in their organization, and how the Steelers are run. So I hope you enjoyed that. And
that was fun.
It was fun pretending I was a special guest, but he was really a special guest.
It was fun, and it was a little sobering at the same time, because he was very honest about the direction of the franchise. And it's like, all right, this is where we're going. This is the reality.
That's breaking news.
Yeah, like this is the reality of where we are, and just you better hold on tight for a few years.
Hey, you know what? Everybody goes through it. Patriots are going through it right now, so that was cool. I thought it'd be fun. Back to UVA basketball. I got one question, and it's not a on the spot question, but I was thinking of this, and I've been pushing the Flores nickname, and I think Jay's played really well. I think he's had a couple games where he's been in foul trouble, but I think he's so unique. He's such a unique player. Since you've been involved with the ACC, which is what, 92 or 90?
Yeah, 92. Yeah.
92. Is there a player that he reminds you of? Is there a comp for Jay Huff? He's not Leitner. He's not like, has there been anybody in the, call it, this is going to sound terrible, but 30 years since we were actively playing there that kind of reminds you of Jay?
No, he's like a combination of multiple guys wrapped in one. To be 7'1" and shoot the 3, obviously Leitner did that.
Mm-hmm.
But like but then to have the agility to catch lobs and run the floor and do all of those things. I mean, you know, you're talking the size of Duncan, a little taller. Leitner shooting. I would even say somebody like Gugliotta, who was 6'10", who could shoot it facing and post. But nobody at that size. I mean, that he's different.
Unique. He's unique.
He's really unique. He can't have the unicorn nickname. That's already taken. But he's probably closer to that guy, to Porzingis. Yeah.
No, you're right. So that's the comp. When we were talking about it, I said that's probably the comp. Now Porzingis, started playing against professionals when he was about 14 years old.
Right.
But what I've been really excited about was Jay had no hesitation catching and shooting the other day, where he might have in the past maybe pump faked or looked to pass right away. He was letting it fly. Great win at Clemson. You guys look terrific, and I've just been so impressed with the agility of the coaches and the plan, and then the execution of the players. So I'm just happy to see you, brother. I miss you.
Good to see you. You look good.
Well, hair and makeup was in about half hour before the show. They gotta fill it in some of these areas. It's starting to go a little bit, but I'm not unique. Doug Smith gave me a good recommendation on that. But I will tell you this, man. I told YB, I miss you guys, and I love doing this locker room access. It's brought me back to the program, and Mark and team do such a good job. So I feel connected again, and I just love you guys, and I have such good memories of playing with you.
Well, good. And hopefully, are we at Miami this year? Are we down there? Where are we?
The T-Dub's going to pull that up right now.
He'll let's see what he says. But we got to get together if in fact they allow fans at that game. So
that, and I can also get up to Florida State. It's a little farther, but I have clients kind of throughout the state that I can set that up.
Miami comes to Charlottesville.
Miami comes to us.
That's what I thought. Okay. Yeah, I thought it was at UVA near the end of the season, I think. So what's the date? But by the way, who knows, right? Because what's going on, things could get moved, changed, canceled, rearranged. I think the season, as we look at it right now, you got a plan for that, but I think we both know the plan will move and shift a little bit.
Yeah, you got to stay flexible. So
hey Jay, I was this close to unmuting myself and telling Pat how like a week or two ago you said you would take the entire Alabama offensive unit in exchange for Pittsburgh right now. I was this close, but I was like, nah, I have to introduce who I am.
Hey, but listening to Pat, he may actually agree with me and be like, absolutely.
Yeah, he was more real than anybody probably expected.
Yeah.
And Pat's no stranger. You guys can tell he does some stuff on ESPN for the Steelers. He's a pro and knows that stuff inside and out. So
he was good. I think if you ask him, if you twisted his arm, the kid Alex Leatherwood, the offensive lineman for Alabama, their running back and the quarterback, he'd taken a heartbeat if he could get him.
Yeah, he's very connected. The whole family. Once the season ends, all the brothers are in Florida, so there's lots of Rooneys, and again, all great people. So thankful.
There must be an awesome Steeler bar down there.
Well, they had Rooney's. They had it's called Rooney's, and they've had several locations. But there's a lot of Pittsburgh people down here, a lot of Philadelphia people. So there's no shortage of Steeler jerseys. You'd be okay wearing yours down here, Jay.
All right, there you go. I'd be right at home.
Right at home.
Well, good
Mark,
seeing you. I appreciate it. That was big
Hey
time.
man, I'm gonna stick around after because I got another special surprise for you that I'll tell you about.
All right.
Big thanks to Chris Havlicek for coordinating that interview or that time with Pat Rooney. So awesome job.
Peace out, guys. I love you. I'll see you soon.
All right.
Awesome addition on the locker room access team. All right, Jay Wills, before we let YB take us away, let's just touch upon Georgia Tech real quick. What is the plan?
You always ask me what's the plan. Like I'm gonna give you the plan, Mark. You got to know I'm not giving you the plan. Georgia Tech, to be honest, they're good. They're playing good ball. They're an older team, ton of experience. Their guards are really good, and then they will, junk it up, for lack of a better word, defensively. I mean, they're going to change defenses. They're going to keep you guessing. Matchup zone. They play 1-3-1 in the past. They'll play some man. They'll switch. So we just got to be able to recognize what they're in and get into our stuff quick, and then guard. Mike DeVoe's playing good ball. Alvarado's playing good ball. Moses is playing. I mean, they got good players, and hopefully we can bring the same defensive effort that we took to Clemson, and then make some shots. But that's a very good Georgia Tech basketball team.
Much improved from last year.
They're dangerous. I think they could play with anybody in our league.
Yep. Speaking of the league, we've had conversations about the ACC this year. Duke out of the top 25, Carolina top 25. I think this is the first time in several years, I don't know the exact number, where those two teams are out of it. Does that say anything for you about the ACC?
It's this year. I mean, it's kind of what this season has been for everybody, and I expect those teams to continue to get after it and win games. And hey, at the end of the day, they'll be where they're supposed to be. They got a ton of talent, but the league's good. The league is good. There are a lot of good players, and I think on any given night, anyone can play with anybody. But you just gotta you gotta focus on your system and your program, and each coaching staff, I'm pretty sure, they want to be the best version of their team that they can be, and let the chips fall where they may in regards to wins and losses. But those programs, they got a ton of talent, and they'll win their fair share of games. And we gotta take care of UVA and be ready for Georgia Tech on Saturday.
I know you got to be ready for Georgia Tech, and I'm not telling you to look ahead to these two teams I'm going to mention. Did you get a chance to watch Florida State and Louisville last night?
I watched a little bit. I mean, whatever's on, like I got right over my shoulder, I got the TV. I keep hoops on, and I watched that. Florida State's really good, but in Louisville, actually, they got back in the game. At some point, I think they cut it to like 5 or 6, and then Florida State pulled away again, and it was a game of runs. But there's good players. There's a lot of talent, and a lot of different styles of basketball, and you just it keeps you on your toes as a coaching staff, because you're constantly preparing for different styles, and you got to be ready. But I think I want to say tonight. I think Duke's playing Pitt tonight. I'll try to watch a little bit of that. And Jeff Capel and I we're boys. Obviously, we played against each other when he was at Duke, and we've kept in touch over the years. As I think of him as a friend in the business, and we're both huge Steeler fans. Not just because he's at Pitt, but he's a Steeler fan as well. And I was a little jealous when he got that job. I told him he had to just make sure he got me over to some of those games.
Pitt's been playing fairly well. I really like the way you guys are playing. So congrats to you guys right now.
Knock on wood, we keep that going.
5-0 in the ACC, looking to go 6-0 this weekend. Keep it up. Awesome job the last 2 games. Trending in the right direction. Guys just look good from 1 to 18. They really do. I was really happy for all the kids. So good luck on Saturday, Georgia Tech. And then you got Syracuse after that. Not my favorite team. I just had some bad experiences when I would go to those games with the raucous crowd there. So let's beat them. Let's beat both of them. And best luck. And we will catch you next Tuesday, 7 o'clock. Great job. Always a pleasure, Coach.
Thanks, Mark. Good to see you.
YB.
Yes, sir.
Home, baby.
All right.